Hey everybody, it's Chris, and in yesterday's video I talked about the Hex Blade and the new Unearthed Arcana and the new version that we saw of it, and I had some pretty heavy criticisms for that subclass, specifically how it related to requiring to use the Hex spell for everything. And what I want to do is pick another subclass that I thought kind of shows the other side. So with Hexblade, my main criticism was that it is built around using the Hex spell, which on its own I don't think is necessarily terrible. However, I don't think it gave you enough for using the Hex spell, because the Hex spell might not be what you want to concentrate on with a Warlock normally. So if you're going to make the Warlock concentrate on Hex in order to access their subclass features, they better be good. And I'm not sure they were that great. I think if they bump them up enough, I think it could still be a really good subclass. But it's going to require some revision. So I want to show the other side of the coin here. So I want to look at the Hollow Warden that was also in this Unearthed Arcana. This is a subclass for the Ranger. Now I want to mention that were a lot of subclasses in this Unearthed Arcana, and I'm probably just not going to be going through them all. But this one I wanted to go through because I thought it just related well to what I covered yesterday. Now, the Hollow Warden is a brand new subclass, so it's not replacing anything, and so I'm not going to have any history to talk about, so I expect this will be a shorter video. But let's go through all the features quickly, and then we're going to look in a little more detail. So the Hollow Warden, they describe it as, legends tell the most ancient and fearsome terrors lurk deep within the old places of the earth. Unfathomable and bloodthirsty entities of fallow soil and sharpened claws. Hollow Wardens venerate and draw power from such beings, transforming themselves into similarly merciless and monstrous guardians that stalk along the jagged coastlines, cross steep mountain crags, and through other dark and wild places. We start up at the top right there with Hollow Warden spells. When you reach a Ranger level specified in the Hollow Warden spells table, you thereafter always have the listed spell prepared. And at level 3, we're going to get Wrathful Smite, level 5, Spike Growth, level 9, Phantom Steed, level 13, Hallucinatory Terrain, and level 17, Awaken. Then we're going to move down to Wrath of the Wild. I'll just move this up a little bit. And it says, you draw on the strange and ancient horrors of the land for power. When you cast Hunter's Mark, you transform, gaining the following benefits for the duration of the spells. Ancient Armor, you gain a bonus to your armor class equal to your Wisdom modifier, minimum of +1. Your body is wreathed in rotten bark or beastly bristles. And Unnerving Aura, when an enemy starts its turn within a 10-foot emanation originating from you, it makes a Wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, it can either take an action or a bonus action on this turn, not both. Your shadow lengthens and twists around you or sprouts unnatural growths like bloody antlers or putrid fangs. And that is level 3. Then moving on to level 7, we have Hungering Might. You gain a bonus to Constitution saving throws equal to your Wisdom modifier, minimum of +1. In addition, once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you are transformed using Wrath of the Wild. You regain a number of hit points equal to a d10 plus your Wisdom modifier, provided you are bloodied when you are hit. And then level 11, and we're going to get Rot and Violence. Your dedication to Eldritch Forest beings alters you further. When transformed using Wrath of the Wild, you gain the following additional benefits. Eerie Aura. When a character fails a saving throw against your Unnerving Aura, it also takes necrotic, poison, or psychic damage, your choice, equal to your Ranger level. This damage ignores resistance. And Strangling Roots. When you hit a creature with an attack roll using a weapon, you can activate the Sap or Slow Mastery property in addition to a different mastery property you're using with that weapon. And that takes us to level 15. So let me bring that up. That'll be on your bottom left. Ancient Endurance. You become wholly suffused with the forest's ancient power, granting you the following benefits. Persistent Hunt. If you drop to 0 hit points while transformed using Wrath of the Wild and don't die outright, you can expend a level 4 plus spell slot, no action required, and your hit points then instead change to an amount equal to 5 times the level of the spell slot expended. And Timeless. You have immunity to the exhaustion condition. So that is the Hollow Warden Ranger. And what I wanted to point out was this is also a subclass that is totally based around the use of a spell. And in the case of the Hexblade, it was the Hex spell. In the case of Hollow Warden, it is the Hunter's Mark spell. And of course, Rangers can cast Hunter's Mark spell without expending a spell slot a number of times, and it goes up with their level. So a Ranger really can use Hunter's Mark all the time. The issue with using Hunter's Mark all the time is it will prevent you from using other concentration spells, and the Ranger doesn't get a heck of a lot in Tier 3 and Tier 4 other than higher level spell slots, which, if you aren't concentrating on a higher level spell, doesn't do a lot for you. And this is what ends up happening. So on your screen right now, you'll see a graph. I did this graph a few months ago using the new 2024 rules when I was looking at damage of various classes in the game. And the blue line represents the baseline damage, which is based on a warlock using a two-handed sword and, Pact to the Blade. And then the red line represents the ranger, and this was a two-weapon fighting ranger, no subclass, just using Hunter's Mark, no other spells. And what I discovered is that the ranger really excels in Tier 1. If we look at the graph here, we will see that right from level 1, it's almost double the baseline. And it stays well above the baseline all the way through Tier 1. Through Tier 1, Ranger is one of the best classes in the game, the best class in the game for damage, and one of the best classes in the game overall. And arguably the best. Depends what your priorities are. Then we see when we get to Tier 2, level 5, we're still above the baseline with the Ranger, but it is narrowed a lot. And it stays above the baseline until we get to level 9. And then it basically evens out with the baseline, which is still fine. That's not great damage, but it's okay. And then we start to see it fall behind at level 11. This is Tier 3. So in Tier 3, we see it fall behind, and then we really see it fall behind. So by around levels 11 and 12, the Ranger has fallen far behind, and it just never catches up. And, right to the end, we're talking about 44 for the Ranger, about 62 for the baseline. Now, if we find ways to use our spell slots to deal more damage, this would narrow. But it is a unique case where we have a class that doesn't really scale very much in Tier 3 and Tier 4. So when I look at Ranger subclasses, I look pretty closely at what happens at Tier 3 and 4. So let's see what happens with the Hollow Warden. So starting off with the Hollow Warden spells, there were two spells I thought stood out, which I have highlighted. That is Wrathful Smite at level 3 and Phantom Steed at level 9. Wrathful Smite is very notable for a Ranger because it gives us a way to do non-concentration damage. The Wrathful Smite in the 2024 rules does not use concentration anymore. It used to in 2014, but that has changed. Now, Wrathful Smite can also frighten the enemy, but as an absolute minimum, it allows us to use our spell slots to deliver extra damage using our bonus action. Then at level 9, Phantom Steed, it's just a really good spell that Rangers normally can't get, and gives them massive mobility. And if you are playing a kind of Ranger who's maybe using two-weapon fighting, for example, Phantom Steed will be very helpful to get you to where you want to be on the battlefield. It also allows you to disengage without using your action. You can use your Steed's action instead. And it has utility value as well. So those are the two spells I thought really stood out. Spike Growth is a good spell, but it uses concentration, so it conflicts with Hunter's Mark, and Rangers can get it anyways. And Hallucinatory Terrain and Awaken, I mean, they're both decent spells. Awaken can be a very good spell if you got a GM who works with you on that, but we're talking about level 17. I'm not sure it's going to make a huge difference at that point. So those two spells I thought really stood out. And the thing about Wrathful Smite is, now if we are using our free castings to do Hunter's Mark, all the Ranger spell slots are available for things like Wrathful Smite, which will improve our damage. And so that will scale with our level. And Phantom Steed won't use any spell slots because it is a ritual spell. And then at level 3, we have the Wrath of the Wild, and it says that we're going to get a bonus to armor class equal to our wisdom modifier. And this is really notable. It doesn't have anything to do with damage. This is about defense. And if you're playing a 2-weapon fighter, for example, or a longbow user, then you are not going to be using a shield. And if you don't want to use a shield and you're a ranger, you're probably dex-based, and dex and wisdom, right? So you're probably using light or medium armor, and your armor class is going to be 16 or 17 maybe, and maybe a little higher if you have magic items. But it's not a great armor class. So although rangers have good hit points, it is not uncommon for rangers to just take a lot of damage. They don't get resistance like barbarians do, so they can go down. A bonus equal to your wisdom modifier is a lot, and I notice this does not require that you are not wearing armor. So unlike unarmored defense for monks, which also basically allows you to add your wisdom modifier, here we're adding our wisdom modifier, but we can stack it on top of wearing armor. So that this is a huge bonus. Now, it's only when we're using Hunter's Mark, but if I want to be using Hunter's Mark as a ranger, I want to be incentivized to do it. This does that. And then we have the Unnerving Aura. What it's going to do is it's going to disable our enemies, which is extremely good. Now, I noticed that at level 3, other than Wrathful Smite, potentially, though we have a limited number of spell slots, but at level 3, we're not getting a whole lot for our damage. We're getting a lot for defense and debilitating enemies. And that's great, because although Rangers do the most damage in Tier 1, they're definitely not defensively the best class, so giving them a bonus on that is really nice. And then we're getting a lot more control. And when you're using 2-weapon fighting, usually using like Vex and Nick as weapon masteries. So neither of those are control. They're both actually based on damage. Vex gives you advantage on some of your attacks, and Nick gives you an extra attack as part of your attack action. So those are both giving us extra damage, but they're not giving us control. So we're getting some control. We're getting some ability to disable our enemies. We're gaining defense. Those are the kinds of things I want to see for my level 3 ranger. Then we get to level 7, and we get a bonus to Constitution saving throws equal to our Wisdom modifier. Now, this is right in the middle of Tier 2. And remember, in Tier 2, our damage is still okay. Now, we are getting a few more spell slots. That means a few more Wrathful Smite. So we're getting a little bit more of a boost here over a base ranger. But, yeah, we should be above baseline the entire time. Constitution saving throws is going to protect our concentration. And that protects our Hunter's Mark. So we're going to be less likely to use our Hunter's Mark. And Constitution saving throws come up for all kinds of other things in the game. It's a very common saving throw. Probably the most common saving throw. So getting a bonus equal to our Wisdom modifier is terrific. In addition, once per turn when you hit a creature with an attack roll where you're transformed using Wrath of the Wild, regain a number of hit points equal to a d10 plus your Wisdom modifier, provided you're bloodied when you're hit. So this is only when you were very damaged you can recover some hit points. But we've already, of course, got the armor class bonus, so we should be taking less damage. But when we do, if we take a lot of damage and we're close to going down, we have a little more resilience there. So we're adding a little bit more to our defense, which, again, is about what I would really want to see with a ranger at these levels. Where I want to see a little more offense come in is level 11. So at level 11, we get Rotten Violence, and we're going to get the Eerie Aura. When a creature fails its saving throw against our Unnerving Aura, it also takes necrotic, poison, or psychic damage, your choice, equal to your ranger level. This damage ignores resistance. This is exactly what I want to see on a ranger at level 11. Damage equal to your level is very substantial. If we consider that creatures are maybe making their save half the time, which they probably aren't. They're probably making it a little less than half the time, but let's say they make it half the time. That's half our ranger level DPR right there. And that almost wipes out that difference in Tier 3 on damage. And this can be to more than one creature in a turn. So it could be, we're spreading damage then, which is an entirely different thing to think about. But in terms of delivering damage, we're still delivering damage. This kind of bridges that little gap that we tend to see in Tier 3 with the ranger. That is great. And the ignoring resistance, also very nice. Necrotic, there's some creatures that are immune, some creatures that are resistant. We don't care about the ones that are resistant anymore. So we're just worried about the ones that are immune. And we've got things like your insubstantial undead, things like wraiths and ghosts and those kinds of things, specters, I think. Poison, there's all kinds of creatures that are immune. And then Psychic, there's some creatures that are immune to Psychic as well. They tend to be things like constructs. We actually have a pretty good idea whether a creature is going to be immune to Necrotic or Psychic, and very seldom are they going to be immune to both. So we should have a pretty reliable damage here. So that's also really nice. And also, you can activate the Sap or Slow Mastery property in addition to a different weapon mastery property using that weapon. Now, Sap and Slow are both control. Sap gives them disadvantage on their next attack, and Slow slows their movement. So these are not damage. But like I said before, the Ranger already is using weapon masteries that add to damage. They're generally using things like Vex, or they're using Nick if they're doing two-weapon fighting. Again, not every Ranger is a two-weapon fighter, but if I was considering a two-weapon fighter, for example, adding Sap and Slow to every hit, and I'm making additional hits because of two-weapon fighting, I'm getting a lot of control there. I could probably Sap and Slow any enemy I'm concentrating on every single turn. So we're adding a whole bunch of control and damage at level 11. Exactly when I want it. This is exactly what I want to see in a Ranger subclass. Now, again, we have to be concentrating on Hunter's Mark. I'll concentrate on Hunter's Mark. You've given me Wrathful Smite. At level 11, I'm into third level spell slots. So I can be doing 3d6 extra damage. Never mind Frighten and Sap and Slow. So this all kind of goes together really well, as far as I'm concerned. Now, then we move to level 15, and we get the Ancient Endurance, and we have it where if you fall to 0 hit points, you don't die. Now, we have got two features that are going to make that less likely. The first is the bonus to our armor class, and the second is once per turn, if we're bloodied, we can heal ourselves. So I don't expect Persistent Hunt to come up very often. And we have immunity to the exhaustion condition. Now, there are certain cases where that's fantastic. There's also cases where you can use some teamwork with that. Like if, you have a warlock in your party and they're casting Sickening Radiance, you wouldn't have to worry about being exhausted in that area, that kind of thing. Immunity to exhaustion when it comes up is fantastic. Most sessions, I would imagine, unless you're using some kind of combination, it's not going to come up. And Persistent Hunt, I would think, isn't going to come up all that often. And this is the one area where I think this particular Ranger subclass could use a boost. It's level 15. I just think they've given us some things that might be better on a different subclass. And I also think it's not exactly what this subclass is looking for at this level. But overall, thrilled. I mean, most Rangers I play are not going to get to level 15, so this probably isn't going to come up anyways. And these are not bad features. They're decent features. They're just, I'm not sure they're a great fit on this particular subclass or exactly what I'm looking for from this subclass at this level. But when I look at levels 3, 7, and 11, I'm seeing a very solid subclass here. And I am finally seeing a Ranger where it's really paying me off to actually use my Hunter's Mark. And I have other uses now for my spell slots other than concentration spells that will conflict with Hunter's Mark. I'm also getting an ability to maintain my concentration on that Hunter's Mark more effectively. So this is the other end of the spectrum. The complaints I had regarding the Hexblade were because it was all based on the Hex spell and the benefits they gave you weren't good enough. Here we have the Hollow Warden for the Ranger. They have made this mostly dependent on the use of the Hunter's Mark spell, but they are paying you off for using the Hunter's Mark spell. The bonuses here are huge. They're much, much bigger than Hunter's Mark will give you on its own. Never mind the other bonuses that Rangers do get with Hunter's Mark. So I am thrilled with what I see here. I think in terms of feedback, I'd say level 15. I think I might look for something that might give me a little bit more control and maybe a little bit more damage. But levels 3, 7, 11, and the spells, I think they did a really solid job here. Another thing I would like to see, and this might be because it's based on a playtest, So we don't know exactly what the supplement is. Obviously, something horror related, but I'm not sure what terrors in the deep they're discussing here that we're drawing power from. I'd like a little more meat on that to know exactly like what kind of creatures it is that I'm pulling from, so I can kind of get in my head. I guess I could just make it all up, but I'd like at least some more solid examples there for a thematic thing. But yeah, quite happy with this one. So I definitely wanted to go over this one just to show that it's not because the blade, the hex blade is using hex, that's the problem. It's that if you're going to make me concentrate on a spell, pay me off for it, especially if there's other spells I could be concentrating on. Hollow Warden has done that. So yeah, good job, designers. I think you're off to a really good start here. I'm sure we'll see some changes before official publication. If they didn't change anything, I'd still be pretty happy with this. And like I said, I'm not really going to be going over the other subclasses here, but I'm just going to really briefly explain why. So if we go and look at the other subclasses, the Artificer Reanimator is cool. I love the Dr. Frankenstein vibe here. My issue with covering this in a video is I expect we are going to see a new Artificer very soon. And when we see it, because we saw an Unearthed Arcana for it. So when we see a new Artificer, that might change how I feel about what I see here. I think this is a hard thing to playtest because we basically have to either use the playtest version of the Artificer, which is probably going to change, or the official version, which is also probably going to change. And that could change our opinions on all kinds of stuff here. But thematically, I love it. I will say that. College of Spirits, very similar to the College of Spirits that we had. I believe it was in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft that we saw the last version of College of Spirits. This is very similar. I will say I think it could use a little bit of a boost, but I'm not going to go into super detail on that. Grave Domain also looked very similar to the Grave Domain we had before, and it looked fine. And then we had the Phantom Rogue, which also looked very similar to our current version of the Phantom Rogue. And we had the Shadow Sorcerer, which I guess it got some significant changes. I'm not sure why they focus on undead here. Mechanically, it looked fine. And finally, we had the Undead Patron, which also looks very similar to the current version of Undead Patron, also from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So we're going to see a lot of that stuff updated, apparently, in an upcoming supplement. But also, yeah, very similar. I am actually going to be playtesting the Undead Patron later this month. But I'm not sure if it's really a playtest or we're just playing around with it because I think the survey will be done by then. But yeah, I really like the Hollow Warden, and I just wanted to let you know why and go over it as a contrast because, we did see thematically the way that the Hexblade works and the Hollow Warden works are somewhat similar. But the Hexblade is where I think they didn't quite get it right, and the Hollow Warden is where I think they did get it right. So hopefully that's useful to you. I know that the survey has already started, so if you go to D&D Beyond, you can fill out your survey now, and I'm not sure how long it's going to be open for. There's still time to fill it out. So thanks for your time. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.